to another edition of the Teacher Nerds podcast. I'm Ron Nober.
I'm Joe DiPaolo.
I am a technology teacher, 3rd grade to 8th grade.
And I teach 3rd grade.
And today we have 2 guests with us. One may be very familiar to people. She's 3rd time back, Kristine Bertulis, our Vice Principal. Welcome, Kristine.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me again.
And then we also have Dr. Laura Spencer. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to give a little background on you, Laura. So Laura is an educator with an interest in innovative leadership, teaching and learning. She's director of instructional technology and integration, developing engaging online learning tools and curriculum for virtual students in grades 6 to 12. Pretty cool since we're in a lot of virtual environment right now.
I know, right? I know.
And some of Laura's other interests include design thinking, community engagement, and creating a positive school culture. And you're also an Army veteran and
I am.
Navy mom. So thank you for your service, and thank your daughter for her service as well.
I will. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Great to be here.
So, I love looking at your blog that you have, and the one that recently that you had out about just doing the best you can.
Right.
I thought was awesome. And, if you don't mind, I just wanted to share a quick part of that before we get into our 2 yes mores and 1 no way.
Okay.
So I thought that, you had a section at the end that said, regardless of where you are, you're carrying a huge load on your shoulder. There's pressure to be successful in this new environment, but success takes time, and time we don't have right now.
Mm-hmm.
So please give yourself grace and know that you are doing your best. If that means you are making paper packets, awesome. If that means you're hosting a Zoom call for 100 students in your jammy pants, sweet. If that means you're learning Google Classroom 10 minutes ahead of your students, amazing. If that means you're creating lists of resources for other teachers and parents to use, cool beans. If that means you're creating color-coordinated hourly schedule for your family, or you're hating the people who have made the color-coordinated schedule, carry on, my friend. And if that means you need time away from everyone to scream into a pillow, or take a quiet walk, or just step away from the insanity, please do it. You got this, and we got each other. I just thought it was like reading that. I was like, it just felt like somebody, got it and put it out there for everybody to step up and just say, look, it's tough, and I know it's tough.
And how many of those activities could each one of us say we've had to do? Or, if those were all hats, how many of those hats have you worn, Ron or Kristine, like over the past, this is, I guess, we're on spring break, Laura. So we had 4 weeks of this remote learning. And I mean, I think I've been through a lot of those different areas at that time.
And probably at the same time too, right? Like 3 or 4 of them at the same moment. You're like, as I'm making the color coordinated schedule, I'm also hating the people who made it.
Right.
Yes.
And I have a 13-year-old, and in the very beginning, I loved that thing. And a couple weeks into it, he's sleeping till 9:30, and I'm like, you know what? Good for him. Let him sleep till 9:30, because he's gonna get up and do his work. And if that's what he needs at 13 years old, let the kid sleep.
Right.
And what he's going to need to do is going to get accomplished.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely had my almost scream into a pillow moment yesterday. It was just a matter of, I went grocery shopping, and it's the, walking into the store and everybody has a mask on, and it's not, you can't just grocery shop. You're actually thinking and planning steps ahead about touching things and, staying apart from each other. And I got back in my car, and I almost had, a moment where I just had to take a breath and think about, I felt bad for students and kids. Like, this is reality for, a good time forward. And I just thought, that's reality. Us having armed security guards is reality in schools. Them dealing with school shootings and things like that is reality.
Right.
And it just like made me take a breath, like, man, that wasn't for me, as a kid. It was almost carefree, and it's not as much of that, it seemed like. So I definitely had that moment yesterday. So I appreciated those words, looking at that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we'll get into our 2 yes more, 1 no way, and it is quarantine activities.
Okay.
All right, so Laura, since you are a guest, do you want to start, or do you want one of us to start?
Oh, I think I'll have one of you start. You can model it for me.
All right, okay. I'll go ahead and I'll start. One of my 2 yes mores, one has to be guilty, but it's a little bit of binge watching. I've definitely binge watched Tiger King. I am that person. I've binge watched quite a few shows. The other one is, activity is making the fun flip grids that we've been doing for students. We just did the Masked Singer as a flip grid with some of the staff, which was really awesome. Joe and Kristine helped out with that. And we had about 10 to 11 staff members do Masked Singer.
Ron, I think with you, there was 12 different
Was there
people.
12?
Yep.
Yeah.
I counted this morning and I thought, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
We're not the most talented staff, but
No.
Well, no. There was 10 out of those 12 were really good. 10 out of the 12. And Laura, you could probably guess two of those singers that weren't too good are actually in this meeting.
This podcast? Well, if I was there, it would have been 3 in this podcast. So,
yeah, my 1 no way would have to be right now getting on like housework and stuff. I'm struggling to get that. I know Joe is like, Bob the Builder over at his place, but it was not happening for me. I'm struggling to get that stuff done. So, all right, who wants to go next?
I think we should let Kristine or Laura, if you feel, I think one of the ladies should go next.
I'll go. So I think my 2 yes mores, one of them is having dinner with my family. So before this hit, my youngest daughter's a senior, so she's a varsity athlete and works a job and does all, she's a queen pageant person. So all these things, we hardly ever ate together. So since this has happened, we eat together every night. And so yes more, and please, when this all ends, I'm trying to figure out a way to hold on to that, because I just think that precious connection with family is highly underrated, right? Should be more. And then my second one's kind of a tie, but when I'm working, I love to open the windows because I hear the birds now. And I think it's because there's less cars on the road, and they're just the wildlife is finding their place in the world again. So it's just such a blessing to hear them in the morning. And I said it's a tie because the other things my friends and I have started doing is we have Zoom dance nights. So at the end of the day, we might grab a beverage of choice and put on some music, and we all just dance around, whether it's in our house or our backyards, and kind of let loose of some stress for a little bit. So those are my 2 yes mores. I think my 1 no way is that this whole waiting in line to get into the grocery store now, right? I just feel like I'm on an episode of The Walking Dead or something sometimes. When you're sitting out there and everybody has the masks and the 6 feet apart, and the person who's saying you can go in the store now and such is it's so disconcerting. It's just I hope it's not a new normal, but I have a feeling it is.
Surreal.
Yeah, it is. It's surreal.
Definitely. So that's mine.
Cool.
Kristine?
Mine is, my 2 yes mores are similar to Laura's. I would say my first one is getting to spend time with my girls. They're 2 and 6. So at this age, like, this time is so precious, at any age really, but these years fly, and there's always been so many times where I've been like, God, I wish I could have just had a longer maternity leave, or man, I wish I could somehow work part-time. And so I'm really trying to take advantage of getting to do things with them. My second one is, working in a school, as much as, you try to get outside for recess and, fire drills and bus duty, you don't get to spend a lot of time outside. So I have been spending a lot of time outside, going on walks, bike rides, time on my deck, my backyard. So that has been refreshing. Just fresh air and sunlight when it decides to come out is a plus. My no would be, I can't stand right now turning on the TV and watching the news. I just cannot do it. It is so depressing, scary, conflicting. You hear one thing, then the other, and political, and I just want no parts of it. So I'm almost like afraid to turn on the TV unless I'm on like Disney Junior at this point. So I stick with Disney Junior.
Yeah.
All right, Joe.
Well, we it's at my house. It's my son who's 13, and his mom and I have been together for 20 some odd years. So we have a very tight knit group, and we've always been very family oriented. So it's I don't want to say it's anything new with us just always being home. Definitely with his mom working home from now. It's sometimes the quarters are cramped. But it's been a blast, just hanging out all day, every day, and I'm a homebody. But my two favorite activities, my one was I rekindled my love with a hacky sack, and it's so simple, like it's so and it's one of the things I grabbed clean in the room with all the manipulatives that I wanted to take home for virtual math lessons and anything I could think to grab. The hacky sack was sitting right there, and I'm like, you know what? I used to spend so many lunches my senior year not eating lunch and kicking a hacky sack on the front lawn of the high school.
You were that guy.
I wasn't the only one. But like it was just so much fun. So that's been a blast, kicking a hacky sack in the backyard. My second favorite activity, and Ron, you'll know this because it shined through on the Masked Singer, playing the ukulele, and I've been relearning the drums, playing the ukulele, and talk about Tiger King. So I've been writing a Corona song, and there's a couple different versions. There's G versions, PG-13, and the PG-13 version has a Carol Baskin reference in there.
Nice. All right.
Yeah. So that's been a blast. And my one no way, what I think is really like sucked has been they closed the beaches. So even on days where, I do have a time where I can fly down to the beach and spend an hour surfing and coming back, they close the beaches. And it's like now, like, and I have all kinds of stress activities. Like I could run around the block. We can, I could play the drums. There's all kinds of stuff I could do, but what I want to do is surf and right. Either closing the beaches or, Ron, I talked to you, we were hoping to do one more snowboard trip to go to Vermont now over spring break, and they, they're closed. So that's my one no way, is the fact that it sucks that I can't,
we finally have the time to do these things, right? And then we can't do them.
You can't leave your house.
So like, and I guess the only way, like, Laura, I don't know how close you guys are to the beach. I'm about an hour away from the beach, and we surf all year round. And the best time is, the storms that come through now, like Thursdays, the past couple weeks, the waves were like 6 foot and just rocking. And all I just see is people just taking pictures.
Yeah.
Waves.
Same here. I'm about 20 minutes away and everything's locked up, and
it's
sad.
It's crazy. It's like, they're closing the parks. Like that's, to me, that stinks. Cause I'm up at 5, sometimes 6 in the morning is sleeping in late. So like I need things to do, and I don't want to stop. And, the stores suck, like that, all that's a mess. But to me, the worst part is it's dangling the carrot and the chain.
Right.
Can't get to it. So
true.
Yeah. That's mine.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that's kind of a good transition into, taking all the negative and let's see how we can take that and cultivate some kind of positive going in, when things get back to normal. And I mean, even seeing what is normal going to be school-wise, with how is it going to reopen and things like that. But, what do you all see as a positive coming out of a way that we can work with, even starting with teachers, seeing how kindness and compassion can be cultivated through this whole experience with students. What are your thoughts?
I think one of the things we're starting to see is a real coming together. I just think back to when I was teaching in the classroom. So I'm a middle school, high school English teacher. Is my background. And so a lot of times it'd be like, I knew something, but maybe I didn't share. Or maybe the person down the hall didn't want to know what I was doing, right? Or, was I showing them up or things like that. One of the things I've noticed in this is this true coming together of people saying, how can I help? There's a real sense of support, and even with strangers, right? You're seeing it on Twitter and such of people saying, here, I made this, anybody's welcome to have it. Whereas you didn't always have that before. It's not just about, I know some people use like TPT, but it really is truly now here have it. And I've been the same way. Anything I have, you can have it, right? Like, let's just get through this together. And I really am just fingers crossed that continues into the regular classrooms again next school year. That culture of openness.
Yeah. And I think that's the one that, like, I've always been I'm not going to put something on Teachers Pay Teachers just because I always, and Joe, I think, feels the same way. I'm not, Kristine and I haven't discussed it, but it should be free. Like, we should be able to be sharing. That's what this job is all about. And that's what we're trying to teach kids. And we want to do the same. So it is nice to see. And I know, Joe, you just started that game board activity that you saw from someone.
Right, based off, something I saw someone do on Twitter and start to play around with it, and then threw a question out there, and his response was, oh yeah, I got it from this template, and then I noticed, yeah, his was something you could copy, and I'm like, holy smokes. And then the more I fiddled around with his template, like, really started to become my own and figure out how to do it. So, like, Ron, we've talked about social emotional learning, well over, I guess, maybe about 2 years now, and have really tried to weave it into our classroom. And I think that's, from a majority of the teachers, that's what now I'm seeing is people are starting to care more about the kids as opposed to the curriculum. And and I know I talked to my brother-in-law the other day who's in a different district than us and has always fought with his superintendent and the principals and the administration. And one of the things I said was, our admin has been great with the past couple of weeks getting the kids without devices and getting the kids without internet. So Kristine, like, I don't know if I said it in the last one, but like, hats off, because I think as a district we came together, and I can't talk for every teacher, but the teachers that I've seen and just the stuff that you guys did, that was cool to see us come together as a community.
Absolutely. And I think, going off what everybody said, and Laura said, coming together and leaning on each other too. I think that, this experience alone, it kind of led some people to see maybe some weaknesses in themselves and some strengths in themselves, but realizing that that's okay. And that, I know for a fact that Ron knows way more than I do about technology. Let me lean on him right now, because I can't be perfect at everything right now. I'm not capable of doing that. And we don't have the time, because the time is right now to learn all those things, to maybe be an expert. So let's lean on each other. I also think that as far as the teachers with their students, this experience is giving them an insight into what these students are actually capable of doing when they're not in school. What kind of support they have at home. Some teachers didn't even realize, oh, this student has to get a packet. They don't have a computer. You don't always get to see that side of things as a teacher in your classroom, because a lot of the times we assume that students' worlds look similar to ours, and it's not the case a lot of the time. So I think it's a lot of people the realization of, wow, you know what, I didn't realize that it was like this for a lot of my students, because a lot of our students don't have that support all the time at home. And as we know, a lot of our kids are very different for their parents at home. So you might have a great student in class, gives you 110%, but they're giving their mom a really hard time when it comes to doing their math. So I think, an insight into their world a little bit. We've also seen some of our students struggle with loss and sickness during this time, which has been very difficult. So it's having empathy and seeing each other more as just humans instead of teacher, student, admin, teacher, that we're all humans and we all have fears, strengths, weaknesses, moments where we're going to cry, moments when we're going to laugh. It's a roller coaster, like we said before.
Yeah. It's funny too. I was thinking when you were talking about that is we also are realizing we're all problem solvers. You know, I think a lot of times we want to blow things off and have excuses. Oh, it's bureaucracy. Oh, we can't do that. Well, we can't possibly get all the kids internet at home. That's ridiculous. Or we can't possibly get, you know, all these devices and such. And so here we are in this moment, and we're realizing that we have some pretty serious power here to make change and to make it on a grander scale, on a faster scale than we had before. So it's empowering. You know,
Absolutely.
to see that people can come together and say, this is what I need, and find ways to make it happen. So those students who are struggling at home are getting fed. You know, that was my first concern when people are looking for devices. I was thinking, oh my gosh, I have students who depend on us for food. You know, they depend on us for safety. You know, this is their safe place to be. And that was my worry. And yet, you know, our district is packing breakfast and lunches and making sure on Fridays that they have enough food for the weekend. And they're writing personal notes on bags and sending them home with kids saying, you know, we're thinking about you. And they're passing out devices in the rain. And, you know, they're doing parades down the neighborhood to wave at kids through windows and such. And it's remarkable when we really, really need to do it. And so I'm excited. I'm excited at potential and possibilities, because I just really hope again that this continues, that we realize we do have power to make change.
Right.
Yeah. What about from a teacher perspective, about teachers opening their eyes to, I don't want to say what's important, but that letter grade or that curriculum that, you know, I have to get to this, and this may not be as important as giving students some ability to shift in their learning, or to take, you know, their learning, take their learning over a little bit. You know, what are your thoughts on that?
I know. I think coming out of this, teachers are going to be better teachers, and students, if given the opportunity, are gonna realize what they could possibly do. You know, if they're excited and given the opportunity. What I'm excited about is all these virtual lessons that I'm creating, and I've started creating. You know, we got into UDL this year, so we started a bank of lessons. But now now it's, instead of one lesson a week, it's multiple lessons a week, and everything's getting stored in Google Drive. So to be able to then to meet with groups earlier, and to be able to have guys fly through chapters if they're able to, or if they can't, then meet with teachers more often in smaller groups, and like the excitement that now can happen. And Ron, you know, we've been talking about this for about a year, and now all of a sudden everyone is thrown into this.
Right.
So, you know, you think about the baggage or the tricks, you know, all the tools that are going to throw in. Laura, I teach third grade with, right now there's 3 sections total, 2 inclusion classes and 1 single teacher class. And I just think about everything that we're creating together, and that will have, you know, maybe if something I don't want to use for someone right now, but I might need something a little bit later down the road or moving forward next year, you know, like I know that's all going to be there. So that's, as a teacher, that's what I'm excited about. And to see the kids almost more motivated now than they were in the classroom. When
they want to show off now, they want to show you what they can do.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
excited.
you know what? I look back now and think, damn, I really was doing a lot of the work where I should have maybe released more earlier. You know, like I just see from day one the Flipgrid responses from these kids, and now to be able to use all those mediums and platforms more, because, you know, we're not in there in the classroom saying, use your writer's notebook, use your seed notebook. You know, it's forced to do something different and go out of your comfort zone. I don't want to say I love it, because up until that very last day, I was giving those kids high fives. They were coming in that classroom and high fives and fist bumps. And, you know, is that going to change? I hope not, because that's what hand sanitizer and soap and water is for. And those kids, you know, I'm not a hugger, but some of those kids try and, you know, hug, and who knows? And I say I'm not a hugger. That might be the only hug that kid gets that day, which sucks and is so sad to think about. So I'll throw my hands up in the air and let them hug and say, hey, Mr. DePaulo's not a hugger, but to have that aspect, again, those are some of the things that I get psyched about as a teacher. Looking forward, whether it's June or who knows, September, eventually when it all goes back to in school, it could be exciting, and hopefully everyone just doesn't go back to the easy way of doing things.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hope everybody doesn't go. Go ahead, Laura. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was saying, I hope people don't go back to, cutting and pasting lesson plans from years and years and years, and see that they have the ability to be creative and innovative, and take that on.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I was going to say, with the boundaries kind of blurred now, right? And that it's not from 8:30 to 9:05, or at 10 o'clock we have to go do this, and here's our nutrition break, right? We have all these flexibilities. When state testing was done here, when they said, okay, that's it, forget it, California, we're not going to test students this year, it was almost like this collective sigh of relief across the state, right? Like I felt like the whole state of California just went, because now students can explore passions.
Right.
So, we were joking earlier, like, when you said, my child sleeping until 9 or 9:30, my oldest, slept in, my youngest daughter, but she's 17, slept in until noon today. And I joked with her, like, do you think maybe we should get out of bed? But she's exploring painting. She's been cooking, like all these things that there's just no time for in the stressed out day to day of school. Mm-hmm. And I feel like now we're really focused on educating and not on school. Like they're two completely different things, right? You can do school without educating at all. Right. And now we're really focused on how do we educate and how do students learn, and the whole bureaucracy of school is gone. It's fun.
Well, knowledge is no longer power, because as long as you have this, right, like you have everything you need and it fits in your pocket. But what do you do with it? Like everyone now can be smart, because you're doing science work, let's say, and you have to find the atomic weight of cobalt. So they say, hey, Siri, what's the atomic weight of cobalt? Siri will tell you. Like, I don't.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Siri's going to tell you.
Siri. Like, oh, what do you want to do? So that's it, giving them that opportunity now. And we run in our district a Spark Time where we give those kids the opportunity at least one day a week to pursue their passions. And that's it. It's not, this is what you should learn, but this is what learning's about. This is how you do it. Now let's learn something that you're interested in. And it does. I mean, you talk about lighting that fire and letting them go. It's a crappy situation, but it's almost like when you're pushed into something, this is design thinking, right? Like, here's our problem.
Change doesn't come from status quo, right? I mean, every major innovation in life isn't happening when everything's going okay. If all is well in your world, there's no reason to change it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So it's during these times, it's not always crisis, but it's during these times when change comes about. And so this is education's time to say, okay, here's your opportunity. What are you going to do with it?
Right. And I think too, like when thinking of going back to school, and like you said, Joe, if you have a device, you have the answers, and there is a difference between school and actual education. But what I think that we've all taken advantage of is that emotional connection with other people. And what students are missing right now, I've had students reach out, like, we're not going to have the pep rally. Yeah. We're not going to have our 8th grade trip. These are the things the kids aren't missing their, geometry lessons.
Mm-hmm.
They're not missing the NJSLA.
I don't think so. But, it's making me think on, as an admin end, is what can I plan for kids to come together more as a community to do those kinds of events where that's what sticks with them the most. So what can we do as a kickoff when we get back to bring everybody together? Because right now they can't do that stuff.
Right.
And we take it, we definitely take it for granted. That's what I meant to say. We definitely take those things for granted, being with one another and doing things like that together. And those are the things the kids really love to do.
Well, I'm sure a couple days into this, the kids were excited. And then after a few days, I heard my son say, those teachers, they they kept us in there for 8 hours and we can get through this stuff in 3 hours. And then, 3 days later, he's ready to go back because, it's, and I love this. Like, to me, this is the Wild West, right? This is the new frontier, and we get to write the playbook. So to me, this is an exciting time. But as an 8th grader, like, that's, he wants to go back, and I don't necessarily think he's worried about graduation, but he is worried about, like, hanging out with his friends and just seeing everyone. And he's not at least going to start the same high school with the other kids. He's going to start at the Votech school to explore a couple different trades. So I do feel like he's getting robbed of this, his 8th grade year. He's got a tight now group of kids that are really good kids. Kids made great choices, and 7th grade was tough, but 8th grade, like, was really, things really started to level out for him. That's sad. And it's sad to hear him say, God, I can't, I want to go back to school. And, I wonder if this happens next year and I am in a welding program, how am I going to deal with this then? Because, we went to that program, and they said that they'll do, I believe, 2 days in the class and then 3 days in the shop. So right now, like, what are those kids doing? And, I'm sure there's virtual programs out there, but that can't be anything like being in the booth welding or being under a car.
And I think that goes part of that roller coaster. Like, sorry, the sunlight is wicked right now. So when we, when we started off, it was like, I was all jacked. I'm like, oh, I'm going to make this video. And we put out, a video a week to the community. And then we did like a spirit week Flipgrid. And then I was just like, I'm depressed. I just didn't have it in me. But then again, you have to realize that's when you lean on other people. But like, I was like, I don't have it in me to focus on something positive right now. I know that sounds bad, but like, I was losing it as a mom. I was losing it as a wife. And I was like, I can't do this right now. Like, I can't give any positivity. And then it came back, but it's just a roller coaster right now. And then you don't feel like you're doing enough. Like, like I said to Ron and Joe last week, I don't have specific Google Classrooms with students. So for me to try to connect with the kids, I'm trying to get into a million different Google Classrooms because I want the kids to see my face. I want them to know, like, hey, Mrs. Bertulis is here. I care about you. I'm thinking about you. But it's a struggle. It's a struggle. It's definitely a roller coaster ride.
I think it's going to make us remember what's important, right? How do we value relationships? How many times have we, like, as adults, we say, oh, I would love to hang out with that friend, but I've got this going on, or, and I always used to joke with my friends, like, I still love you. I'm sorry, I've been out of the loop for a while. And I just think, you know what, I really need to reprioritize what's important. And I think that's going to be something that we really have to hold on to is the human touch. We started talking about learning and such, but the human touch and who are our students as human beings, as individuals. How do we connect? Like you said, how do they know that you are thinking about them or that you care is going to be key, especially the longer we do this. There's some serious depression going on right now. Absolutely. And there's some people in not lovely homes. Like, I can go outside and go for a walk. That's awesome. But I also know some people who live in tall, ugly brick apartment buildings and the park is closed and they don't have that option and they're stuck with all their family. And so how are we reaching them and letting them know that we care, that we're here? It's hard.
And that was one of the first things too that, we're very fortunate that we have very good counselors in Southampton, and we have 3 right now. We have 2 full-time, 1 part-time, but that was one of the first things we focused it on as admin and guidance counselors. How are we reaching these kids in the homes that we're worried about? Right. How do we make sure they're okay? How do we open that line of communication where they have a safe haven to reach out if they need to? And we were able to set that up. So, but it's still scary because there's kids that I lost sleep over just when they would go home at night, just for that one night. And now it's like, I might not see these kids for months. Like, how do I know that they're truly okay? And it's not like I'm calling their personal cells to check on them.
Well, and kids that might have been okay before might not be okay now.
Right.
And so we've been doing the same thing. We have a list, and it's telling teachers, like, I need you to check in on every single child not just the ones you were concerned about before.
Right.
Because you have families who are well off that all of a sudden, because they're considered non-essential, which is a horrible phrase, by the way, but they've been deemed non-essential, now they're laid off.
Yep.
So students who might have been strong are now having to maybe carry more weight in the family or hold things together. And so, the trauma-informed care is going to increase exponentially when this is over.
Absolutely. And there's going to be I think we have to be prepared too for a huge adjustment period of adjusting back to what normal is.
Right.
And there's so much that's unknown. Like, who knows what that's even going to look like what the new normal is going to be, but it's going to be a huge adjustment for everybody, and kind of like recovering from this, and healing from it, I think.
Right. Well, that was the point of my blog post, is I had a friend who was like, I haven't even gotten up to go to the bathroom. My kid's driving me crazy. I'm going to kill somebody, and was just really beating herself up. And it was like, you know what? If I had to teach middle school with my toddler hanging on my leg and asking for a sandwich, and my dog going in and out, and the FedEx guy and such, I would not have been as successful a teacher as I was. And that's part of that whole grace piece, right? Is this is unprecedented, that we're asking people to work from home, and we think, oh, just bring your laptop home. Right. But life at home is very different. Like, there's a reason you go to the office, is to escape from those distractions and those other things going on. And oh my goodness gracious, I'm so incredibly happy that my daughter is 17, that I can say, here's the keys to the car, you go stand in line and go inside and see if you can find butter, and she went to 4 stores today to find butter. But I don't know how you do it with younger children. Like, I just think, wow. And so we have to not beat ourselves up.
I've always called home from my cell phone, and a majority of my calls home, my whole educational career, has always been after school, because there's always, to me, so much going on. And when I get 10 minutes sometimes during the day, I do just want to sit. So I've always called home from my cell phone, and I've never had issues, never. And the past couple weeks, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten parents texting me and calling, and they're like, we're having a bad day. There's no due date. Is it okay if we do it? I'm like, look, if you're having a bad day, don't do this. Like, we're not grading assignments. There are opportunities to extend your learning. If you're having a bad day, that's why, Kristine, I love moving forward our What I Need Day, where we're not going for like a 5-day work week, but there'll be a day during the week where if you need a day to decompress, if you need a day to catch up, that's there, because that's what's most important, your emotional well-being, and not necessarily the grade on the 3rd grade math test. That's on division, like you don't get it this year. Guess what? You're going to see division again in 4th grade.
Right.
And 5th grade.
And 6th grade.
Yeah.
And that's
Common Core math for parents. Oh my goodness.
Oh, I know. It's so sad.
And that's why with my co-teacher, one of the things that, I always tried to stress over this last couple weeks, like, we can't just send school home. Our math book is very confusing. And when we try and walk kids, through the steps and to gradually release it, I'm in front of the classroom. Sometimes I'm like, oh crap, wait a minute, what?
Did I just teach that right?
What? And there's lessons where, we use the book, but we can't follow it step by step, because you look at the standard and you look at the way they're reaching it, and you're like, well,
this isn't working.
Yeah, like let's so to have to try and send that home, like, we're like, no way, especially not now. Like, it's review, it's enrichment. So to get those calls, and thank God I gave them those numbers, because you hear the horror stories where, and my son went through it, where teachers necessarily aren't responding and they don't feel like they have to reach out. So teaching 3rd grade, like, these kids are 8 and 9 years old, and to try and force them to do that with something they might struggle with a teacher and a special ed teacher in the room. Now they don't have someone, maybe there's a parent at home, maybe the parent cares enough about education, but that's a lot of what ifs, like that's a lot of dice rolling. So just that phone call, I think, has been, I got a text at 9:00 at night about something, and I replied right away because it was so easy. And the initial response was, you do not have to reply this late. This is when and she has, it's the Bowman's, Mrs. Bertulis. So I think there's like 4 kids, and she still has to work. So at 9 o'clock at night is her time to do things. And I said, like, it's not 8 to 3 anymore. Like, your office hours, I think you have to be.
Well, that's the flexibility piece, that you're flexible with your kids, we're flexible with the parents, we're flexible with the teachers. There has to be that flexibility right now, because you don't know what people are going through.
Right.
Even as administrators, when when in some of the planning stages, and there's five administrators, and we all don't think the same way, or what I think might be best for teachers, somebody else might not think is best for teachers. But you have to remember that we're also not in the teacher's home, so you can't assume what their environment's going to be like at home when they're trying to teach a lesson.
Right.
Like you said, like for me, like I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. It's chaos. It really is. I'm in a locked room right now, hiding. So,
your husband's going to be knocking on the door in 3 hours. Like, how long is that meeting going?
The spaghetti out, the sauce, the pot, everything's ready to go. So he just has to start it. But when we were discussing, I don't want to say debating, but it came into a little bit of debate on, how many lessons, and someone said, well, some teacher, they have to teach, this many lessons a day, 5 days a week at school. Yeah, we're not at school. And my thing is, what's the purpose of doing that? What's the purpose? Who's getting the most out of it? What are the kids getting out of that? Nothing. Throwing 5 to 6 math lessons at them a week is not going to do anything. And what does that do to the teacher besides stress them out? That's just not the way it's going to work, and it's not going to work well. So there has to be flexibility.
Flexibility, like you said, for ourselves and for the kids, right? Like we have to know when it's time for us to disengage. Like, it's great that you responded to a text at 9 p.m. I'm the same way. I'm usually the one who's, sending emails at midnight or 1 a.m. because that's when I'm functioning. Although now I've learned to schedule send so that other people who are up at midnight don't feel like they have to respond. But I also am okay saying, you know what, I'm shutting down for 20 minutes. My phone is staying at my desk. And I'm going to walk around the block with no technology. And it's okay if I miss a call from my boss. I'll call her when I get back inside, but I think people are also afraid of that now. Like, oh, I got to always, what if that one kid, or what if that one parent or my boss? And so that's that. It's hard, that there's not the bell rang, the day is over, right? It can become a blur, and you can find that all of a sudden your 2-year-old's like, Mom, you haven't spent any time with me, and it's been 14 hours, so we have to have, again, that grace to say, this is how you take care of me, because when I'm at my best, then I can help you be at your best. So we have to find that balance.
Right.
I think that's gotten a lot easier as we've gotten further into it. Finding that shut-off switch, or being able to walk away. Because you can. I mean, how many times are you sitting there and go, ooh, that's a great idea. Let me write that down. Or
Right.
We have easels now all over the place. And I am really trying to get everything from our living area into our music room, so I could set up like a studio with green screen and not have to get rid of we have a lot of guitars and drums and I guess our toy room to now become an office, and our house isn't now, we call our classroom Chilling with Ideas. So our house, my house on Dover Road doesn't have to be Chilling with Ideas. I can throw it all into one room and do everything from one room and still have maybe an easel in the living room if I get an idea to jot something down, but to not have a green screen hanging in the wall as soon as you walk into the house. Stacy's not into that look.
I can't imagine why
repainting
not.
the walls. I liked green.
What if we're looking at moving to students? What are some of the ways, or some, I don't want to say projects, but ways that we can cultivate more empathy, kindness, compassion out of this? I mean, for me, this year I really got focused on the SDGs and, trying to bring those in. And the project that we had going with spring break, before spring break, was a collaboration between my technology class and the art class. And students had to research 3 SDGs and find the 3 that spoke to them, that they were passionate about. And I did this prior, to the shutdown, and I've seen more spark in them about what they're passionate about with the SDGs, and health coming up so much, and them doing the research and realizing, not everybody has access to healthcare, or there were so many that were so surprised that clean drinking water was not just something that everybody had access to, or quality education, or, any of the SDGs. Those were ones that really stood out. Prior to this, it was, oh, I care about the oceans, and, because I love animals, and not to knock that as an SDG or a kindness or compassion, but now I think they're seeing people. And, I really want to keep that moving, and try and switch them, from being just consumers of things, but to being creators of things. So how do you think that shift can continue to move forward?
I think it needs to continue to move forward. I think, with design thinking and empathy, the big piece is knowing the end user, and that the end user isn't us, right? I was reading a book about kindness, and when you're little, like your 2-year-old, if you're sad, they'll bring you like their blanket because it makes them happy, so therefore it should make you happy. And they don't really understand, right, that we each have different things that connect with us until they're older. And so I think students are now having opportunities to realistically see, right? Like you said, like the SDGs in the beginning are, well, I like the whales and I like the ocean, so therefore I'm going to, save the ocean. And there's nothing wrong with that. But now they're seeing things at a more personal level. And I think it's a great opportunity to tap into that. I see a lot of schools are working on, like, kids are sending letters saying to first responders, thank you for what you do, or making posters and such. And it's so simple and so powerful. And really giving students opportunities to have that voice, or to be able to share what's going on with them, and have other students say, like, I hear you, I feel you, I see you, is important. And I think beyond that, we are becoming a global society. And so students have an opportunity now to really work in an environment that mimics that. They're not always going to be working with the student next to them, or working with the child that they want to, or whatever, right? So how do we work together across these weird divides right now and such? It's just a real unique opportunity to let them explore those things at a more meaningful level.
I think it would be cool too, coming out of this, teachers, I think, are going to be a little bit more comfortable with distance learning. So I think hopefully the collaboration between schools, or schools in other countries, or just other cities, I hope that goes on.
Even classes, like you talked about that project that you were doing, and it was you and Brittany, right?
Right.
You hooked up with the art teacher, but then what about the reading teacher? Like a lot of the, why not do the read? Because you figure they got so into it and started to find out what causes they were really into, probably because they had the time, and it wasn't, like we've talked before, that bell ends and your kids are saying, oh man, wait a minute. Like, I can't believe this class flew by. Like, now there's no bell telling them to stop. So they get into one of your projects, and, right now there's infinite time for them to put into it. And, not for anything, that might be a more enjoyable project than going to complete a packet. So if you have the opportunity to choose, but like moving forward, when we come back, to hook up with the reading teacher, and to hook up, I'm sure SDGs could lend them their way into the social studies class.
Everything.
Everything.
Right.
Everything.
No,
I mean,
but
you do a We Are the World music,
Mm-hmm.
program based on the SDGs. I mean, there's
to
so
have
much.
more teachers willing to maybe collaborate, and more teachers more comfortable with the technical side of things, and sharing things through, whether it's video, collaborative videos, or, documents and slides and the Google Suite, coming, like, that's, we were working with Carol Piro, but then to move forward and to do things as maybe a whole third grade. And then to do, Ron SCG's third grade focus on something, fourth grade focus on something,
right.
to really bring Ron's vision of an SDG school district.
That's, I love that.
Yes. And maybe then they'd stop asking, why are we learning this? So when I taught 7th grade, 1 year we were piloting a tech program. And so we were fortunate to have students in a cluster. So in the past, it was just, luck of the draw, whichever teachers they had. But this 1 year we had these cluster of students. So we started making sure that we had cross-curricular units built in. And so it was no longer, well, when I'm in Laura's class, she makes me do this. And then when I go to science, we do it this way. But they started to see how things were interconnected. And so when you're talking about like SDGs and it's tech and art, and they think, oh, it's something extra. But when they go to their reading class and all of a sudden the articles and the nonfiction things they're reading happen to be on the same subjects, right? And they're doing some labs in science and they're seeing how erosion works. And they're like, oh, that contributes to the mudslide we were talking about when we were talking about the SDGs here, right? And everything and the historical context. It's bigger than them. It I think gives them a sense of place in the world to see how everything is connected to each other without this arbitrary, I just have to know it for Friday's test.
Right. It makes it more meaningful.
Yeah.
They find the meaning in it.
And even now with what we're dealing with, I was thinking with math, how important are graphs and charts and understanding data and being able to plot data, right, and garbage in, garbage out data, and understanding that, it can hopefully lead to a more kind, compassionate, driven, empathetic, driven curriculum.
Well, you talk about a math lesson. Why do I need to know how to read a graph? This is why. Boys and girls, here's your history lesson. This is why math is important. Look what happened at this point in time when people in charge, or they had people in charge that necessarily were making decisions that weren't doctors or that weren't informed to make those decisions, and how bad situations can get worse when you don't know. I don't want to say simple things, because sometimes you're looking at those graphs and it's confusing. But you want to talk about why math's important. That's a beautiful real world connection.
Right.
Exactly.
I also think, going off of, cultivating the kindness going forward, I think that this situation, like we had mentioned a little while ago, shined a light on people that kids don't often recognize as heroes. Kids look up to, they're sports athletes and celebrities and that sort. And not saying that they're not doing good things right now, but they're not your grocery store workers and your nurses and your, that on the recycling truck today that pick up my recycling. And I think we're looking at people in a much different way and appreciating people no matter what their job status might be. That when it comes down to it, doesn't matter how much money you have in this situation. The coronavirus didn't, pick and choose, and look at the people who really stepped up. It wasn't necessarily who you would have thought would be as your hero. And I think I want kids to look around our community and say, okay, who are the heroes in our community? Right. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Think about people, I remember being in school and, a teacher saying to the class, if you don't learn this, you're going to be someone checking people out at the grocery store, and as if that was this lowly job. But they're the people keeping things running right now. The long haul truck driver, the person checking you out at the grocery store, the guy cleaning the carts as they come back into the grocery store so that you can take it next.
Right. I've been trying to run outside whenever, because of course we're all dependent on Amazon and things right now for deliveries. So I've been trying to run outside when the FedEx people are dropping stuff off just to say thank you, right? Thank you. Because usually
we put notes all on our front door. Our front door is covered.
It's those little things, but you're right. When they go back, are they going to appreciate the person checking them out at the lunch line and different things? Those are the people who have kept us going. And that's, I hate that essential, non-essential.
No.
But I do think what it's highlighting though is that there's a lot of essential people that in the past we've deemed non-essential. Like maybe it's shifting us a little bit to say there is no such thing truly as non-essential, and to say, oh, you're going to be, you know, when we were growing up, they say, oh, do you want fries with that? Right. Like that was supposed to be like you're not going to be successful in life. And I think, well, they're the ones feeding me right now. So thank you very, very much for my fries. Because, you know, I'm running out of food at home. So, you know, we're going to be grateful for different people, but I think it's up to us as adults to highlight that for the younger students, especially too, right? Is to be careful in our wording, and maybe we'll rethink some of the things we say or the negativity we bring in. You know, Mike Rowe with Dirty Jobs, that was his whole thing in the beginning, right? Was to say, oh, be careful who you choose to dismiss, because these are the people that keep our country going. And he's right. And now we're seeing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I got to say, the one thing you had mentioned your design thinking, Laura, and I love you had the project, I think you gave like 3 minutes and a paper plate for people to design a mask.
Yes.
And it highlighted so well design versus design thinking.
Right. Yeah. So
because
the
your
concept,
mask.
So the concept, it was a piece of construction paper, and they had a minute to put a mask on their face. Right. And that was the only parameters, but it had to fit on their face without being, you know, held. And then when they were done and they all wore it, I actually like took a selfie, and they were all proud of themselves. And I go, these are awesome masks. Now trade it with the person next to you. And the mask doesn't fit right. You know, your eyes are set different. You know, a lot of people who had glasses were using the glasses to kind of help, but then the person next to them didn't have glasses and it didn't fit. So it's this whole idea. Yeah, we can't focus on what works for us.
Right.
You know, that's design, but it's really not design thinking. So.
Yeah. And that was something that took me a little while to figure out the difference. And not that one's better than the other. I mean, you need them both, but to
different purpose.
Yeah. Understand design versus design thinking. You know, but I thought that was just, I was like, oh, it's such a simple little project, but
That's
it
cool.
highlights, you know,
and
such
cheap.
right. Exactly. And there's nothing
like can I
watching
do this as a keynote? I was a keynote. And I'm like, can I do this as a keynote speaker? And I was like, I'm going to try it. I'm like passing out construction paper in this giant audience. I'm like, we're going to do this, you know, but it's those things. And that's why I said, like, you know, the little kid will bring you their blankie and they expect you to be happy. And, you know, we each have our own blankie, you know, our own way of being happy. And so are we going to realize that, you know, when we start school next year, are we going to decorate our classroom based on what makes us happy? You know, are we going to have conversations with students and say, what do you need in this classroom to feel safe and happy? You know, there's a lot of things I think that we're going to start, I hope, rethinking and reassessing the purpose and, you know, design for others.
If there was one last, I guess, like stakeholder in the whole group that I wanted to, you know, we wanted to talk about was parents.
Yeah.
You know, how can we, because I think a lot of parents I've seen, you know, online are kind of going, whoa, teachers really play an important role in what's going on, you know, and how can we keep that ball rolling of we're all looking for a common goal and we want to keep that common goal going. What are some ideas to, you know, help continue that, you know, moving forward? Because I know one of your specialties is community, bringing community together.
Right.
And sometimes I think it's daunting to try and bring the community together, you know, in a district.
Patrick Lencioni wrote a book called The Advantage, and he talks about communication, and it's for business leaders. And he says, you know, you communicate often, you over communicate, you communicate again, right? He was just like, I can say something 20 times, but maybe you weren't ready to hear it. And on the 21st time you are. And I think with parents, one of the things where, and I'm guilty of this too, is we just get in our own bubble and we just think, parents, just let us teach, right? You parent, I'll teach. I've got this. And we've put like this wall between us. And so I think moving forward, one of the things we have to do is communicate more often and with intention, you know, not at them, but with them. You know, here's what we're working on. Here's why. What are you thinking? You know, how can I support you? What are you noticing? And invite them in. And inviting them in doesn't mean you have to come in the back of my room and cut up construction paper for my project next week. But whatever you can deliver, however you can deliver, how do I invite you in to be part of this process is going to be huge. Like, we have to be partners. We talk about it all the time. Yeah. We don't really mean it a lot of the times because we want to close our door and do what we want to do. And I get it, guilty as charged. But how do we really say, if we work together, we are better than if we are doing two separate things? So that, to me, is the big piece with parents.
I also think, Ron, that parents are seeing so much more now because teachers are using technology to show what they're covering, what it's going to look like. And we don't typically do that because we're in a classroom, we write our lesson plan, we do it, and, we might post our homework and things like that. But a lot of parents right now are seeing, sometimes for the first time, what the focus is on of their child's learning. And I think that is something we need to continue to do, is let the parents see what's going on more often. I think it's really important, and it does make them go, oh my gosh, wow, like, you're able to get my child to do that.
And maybe that's where the positives of social media,
right.
In the school, having a classroom Twitter account or a classroom Instagram, reaching the parents where they live,
right.
on social media.
That's why, and sometimes when we send out, emails or the robocalls, I'm like, just put it on Facebook. Like, that's where the parents are, they're following on social media. Honestly, in my struggle in the beginning to reach all the kids, especially my middle schoolers who the teachers weren't holding as many, Google Meets, because it's harder when you have multiple classes in middle school, meeting with all those kids. I went on TikTok. That's where they are.
I've seen Laura's TikTok stuff.
Yeah, I made a few TikToks for them, and they were like, Mrs. Bertulis, I was like, that's how I reach the kids. That's where they are. So I think it is all about reaching them, where they are. And we have to do that with parents too. They want to see it and they want to be a bigger part of it. We just have to figure out, how to do that.
Well, for our room, we would bring them in for when we would do design thinking. And we would try and do those maker projects or some type of project based on something else. And it's great because, we have two teachers in the room, but when you can bring parents in for those types of hands-on projects, with third graders, like Ron, I know in your class, they are able to use X-Acto knives.
Not the third graders.
Not the third graders. No. But I'm sorry, the middle school kids, right?
Yeah.
So when I have 7 little 8-year-olds that say, "Can you cut this wall?" and I need a circle here, having those extra adult hands in the room.
Yep.
And you talk about being appreciative. That's when, like Kristine, you said, "Wow, you got my Johnny to do this." And you can at times. You're a cowboy and you have a herd of cattle and each one wants to go a separate way and
so true.
And you're keeping it all going. To me, that was always the funnest time to be a teacher is running those types of hands-on projects, bringing parents in. And it's so different now than when I went to a Catholic school in the 80s. So it was sit down, diagram these sentences off the board. It was a lot different. And I think that's what a lot of these parents were used to. So when they come in and see the way our classroom is run, it was like, holy smokes, they're tired and they were only in for, 35 minutes, 45 minutes. and we're running that all day. So you talk about appreciating, what someone is doing for your kid. That's at least from our standpoint, we really saw a lot of great feedback. And during our RTI time with the kids that we had, that weren't getting serviced one-on-one 5 days a week, that would have a couple times where maybe they weren't working on their Spark project or they were in between projects or waiting for an expert student to come help them with something. So we put them in a multiplication tournament run by a parent, and we had a parent coming in sometimes 2 days a week regularly. It kind of stunk because you know, we were going to have 4 or 5 parents come in, and we were going to make traps for the leprechaun and I am not I'm not into making traps for that leprechaun, but so we made a whole video on, you know, this leprechaun, and we were going to bring it in. You're not making a trap to keep your stuff safe. You have to keep, you know, we were going to have them interview another student. We had like 4 parents, and like the call came Friday night, like, teachers, you got
now
4
you have
hours.
another year to perfect it. And
Yeah,
next
right.
year is
next
year is going to be so good. So good.
And that's it. Like every year getting better and better. But, you know, it's like, it was robbed this year. And I feel like the kids were robbed. Like every year we do something special. We didn't name, the co-teacher and I didn't name our class. The kids named it. And here we want each kid to leave their legacy. So this year, like, it was going to be, what are we called as individuals? Like if our classroom is chilling with ideas, what are we called? Like I could call us chillers, or, you know, like I could come up with a name, but it's not mine. Like I wanted it to be theirs, or the project that we did, the koala project, you know, it's like the parents see the kids doing this stuff at 8 years old and raising, what did we raise? Almost $500, I think, or a little over $500.
Over.
You know, and, you know, the kids are making videos and printing out posters, and, you know, just to see the parents like, holy smokes. And what, you know, the best email, how do I log my kid into Google? Because he's talking about this website that he made, you know, like to show the parents everything they're doing. Like, I just feel like the kids and the parents were robbed. And sometimes I hear myself say this stuff and I think I sound so pompous, but like the experience I think these little kids get, you know, at 8 years old, like I hated school. And so my biggest goal is to give these kids an experience that, you know, they might not remember. What is it? Oh, in math, we got the properties. Who cares about the properties, you know, like, and I don't care if these kids ever remember the properties. But if they remember, you know, the game board they made to help another kid learn multiplication, like, to me, that's what's important. When they think Mr. DiPaolo, what are they going to remember?
Right.
And I feel like a quarter, you know, we do marking periods. So a third of their schooling, a third of their time with us is like, I guess it's not robbed because we're still interacting with them and everything, but you know,
different.
It's changed big time.
We get 7 hours a day with them, 7 hours a day, that now, you know, we don't have that. I think, you know, the kids are robbed, the parents are robbed of that experience. Because we try and make it enjoyable, and we get it all the time. You know, they shouldn't have to struggle to send their 8-year-old to school. And I think when they are in our class, you know, and, you know, I never hear the kid doesn't want to come to school. Like, I don't know what to do. You know, I don't know what you're doing, Mr. DiPaolo. My kid hates coming to school. Like, we don't get that. And if they feel that way, it's never told to us. So I just feel like, to me, that's what stinks. So making those calls home, and this is the first time ever, and Stacy had to help me. Outlook, I created a whole email with just the parents. So, you know, not that, because some parents don't want to get text all the time, or, you know, they don't want a weekly text on what's going on. So I'll send out a weekly email. This is what we want to try and do. That, you know, that contact, it's important, because, you know, we're with those kids 7 or 8 hours a day, which is sometimes longer than, you know, if the parent doesn't come home till 5, the kid's got to go to bed at 8, right? That's 3 hours there, and maybe an hour in the morning. And I don't know what it's like with anyone else's kids in the morning, but I'm like, come on, get up. You got to get, what do you mean you don't want breakfast? Did you brush your teeth yet? No, you didn't. You clearly didn't do the back of your hair. Let me help you. What do you mean you don't, you know, it's not, chaos. It's not like it's been the past couple weeks where we don't have to worry as much as we used to.
Right. But I think, you know, for this time, like we had said before, kids and parents, teachers, we're not going to look back at this time and think, okay, so what did we cover during this time? What did my child learn? It's going to stand out with how we made people feel. Did they feel comforted? Did they feel stressed? Did they feel, what were they feeling? And I think the fact that, you know, we've really tried to come together to say, hey, you know, Friday is going to be a day where you take what you need. We're only going to have this many lessons a week. You're going to be pass fail. We're not giving you actual grades. Like, everybody take a breath. Teachers, you're not working a full day. You don't need to hand in lesson plans. Like, that's what people are going to remember, is how they felt during this time about school. And I think that's really important. Like, I think as an administrator, what are my teachers going to think about me during this time? What are my students going to think about me during this time? Not, did I make sure the teachers covered the curriculum they had?
Right.
That's not what's important right now.
Awesome. I don't know. Anybody have anything else before we wrap up?
This could be our longest one yet, Ron.
Yeah, I know.
This is longer than our last week's one, and that was pretty long.
Yeah.
Like when you get multiple people talking about a topic that everyone's passionate about,
Right.
you know,
Yep.
like the only better place this conversation could happen, in my eyes, would be like a bar. Because, you know, like you could keep drinking beer and then
The 6-hour-long podcast episode.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for joining us. I really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
If people want to get in touch with you, what are the best ways?
You can find me on Twitter. LSpencerEDD is my Twitter handle. You can email me at laurakspencer.com. You know, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. Anything, anytime. My blog, laurakspencer.com as well. But always here for people, especially right now. Like I said, I will gladly give anything and everything in my arsenal to anybody who needs it. So they just have to let me know. And I know sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And that's the other thing too, right? Is people don't necessarily know what to ask for, but they just know that they're stressing about whatever, you know, reach out and we'll figure it out.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you so much. Kristine, thank you so much. And Kristine, what's your Twitter for people to follow?
Oh my gosh, I should know this, Ron, off the top of my head. I think I'm Bertulis VP.
Okay.
This is Bertulis VP. God, pathetic. You know me with Twitter. Sometimes I'm all about it, and then I'll take like a little vacay. my keeping up with Twitter. Gotta get better.
It's a full-time job. It could be
It can be a full-time job.
It can be sometimes very daunting.
There's so much out there, you know, and there's a lot of good stuff out there. Not all of it's good. But
correct.
I just say if I follow what Ron and Joe are putting out there, I'm good. Like I just follow what you guys follow, and I feel like I'm caught up, and it's all good. You make it easier for me.
All right. Well, we will let you go. Laura, thank you so much for joining us.
It was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you
Yeah,
too.
it was great to meet you in person. Well, kind of in person. As in person as it gets right now.
Right.
The new norm. That's the new norm.
Yeah.
So thank you once again. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.